So we are on page 166, and it is here that the emergence of the secret psychic being. So, Archana ji, usually because you are in the dispensary, you might as well start reading if you have the text.
Yes, Rangad, I have.
Okay,
Uh,
go ahead. It
It
is here.
is here. It is here that the emergence of the secret psychic being in us as the leader of the sacrifice is of the utmost importance. For this inmost being alone can bring with it the full power of the spirit in the act, the soul in the symbol. It alone can assure, even while the spiritual consciousness is incomplete, the perennial freshness and sincerity and beauty of the symbol and prevent it from becoming a dead form or a corrupted and corrupting magic. It alone can preserve for the act its power with its significance. All the other members of our being, mind, life force, physical, or body consciousness, are too much under the control of the ignorance to be a sure instrumentation, and much less can they be a guide or the source of an unerring impulse. Always the greater part of the motive and action of these powers clings to the old law, the deceiving tablets, the cherished inferior movements of nature, and they meet with reluctance, alarm, or revolt, or obstructing inertia, the voices and the forces that call and impel us to exceed and transform ourselves into a greater being and a whiter nature. In their major part, the response is either a resistance or a qualified or temporizing acquiescence. For even if they follow the call, they yet tend, when not consciously, then by automatic habit, to bring into the spiritual action their own natural disabilities and errors. At every moment, they are moved to take egoistic advantage of the psychic and spiritual influences and can be detected using the power, joy, or light these bring into us for a lower life motive. Afterwards, too, even when the seeker has opened to the divine love, transcendental, universal, or immanent, yet if he tries to pour it into life, he meets the power of obscuration and perversion of these lower nature forces. Always they draw away towards pitfalls, pour into that higher intensity their diminishing elements, seek to capture the descending power for themselves and their interests and degrade it into an aggrandized mental, vital, or physical instrumentation for desire and ego. Instead of a divine love, creator of a new heaven and a new earth of truth and light, they would hold it here prisoner as a tremendous sanction and glorifying force of sublimation to gild the mud of the old earth and color with its rose and sapphire the old, turbid, unreal skies of sentimentalizing vital imagination and mental idealized chimera. If that falsification is permitted, the higher light and power and bliss withdraw, there is a fallback to a lower status, or else the realization remains tied to an insecure, halfway and mixture, or is covered and even submerged by an inferior exaltation that is not the true I. It is for this reason that the divine love, which is at the heart of all creation and the most powerful of all redeeming and creative forces, has yet been the least frontally present in earthly life, the least successfully redemptive, the least creative. Human nature has been unable to bear it in its purity for the very reason that it is the most powerful, pure, rare, and intense of all divine energies. What little could be seized has been corrupted at once into a vital, pietistic ardor, a defenseless religious or ethical sentimentalism, a sensuous or even sensual erotic mysticism of the roseate colored mind, or passionately turbid life impulse, and with these simulations compensated its inability to house the mystic flame that could rebuild the world with its tongues of sacrifice. It is only the inmost psychic being, unveiled and emerging in its full power, that can lead the pilgrim sacrifice unscathed through these ambushes and pitfalls, At each moment, it catches, exposes, repels the mind's and the life's falsehoods, seizes hold of the truth of the divine love and Ananda, and separates it from the excitement of the mind's ardors and the blind enthusiasm of the misleading life force. But all things that are true, at their core, in mind and life, and the physical being, it extricates and takes with it in the journey till they stand on the heights, new in spirit and sublime in figure.
Yeah.
Almost
Next.
like poetry.
Yeah. Fantastic para where he is describing the psychic action when it comes forward and also the obscuration and the resistance of the body mind life, because they are at the lower end and they are in ignorance and they are in even perversion, so they try to disturb, or even if they don't disturb, they use the purity of the psychic being and the power that comes down, they use it for their own selfish purposes. That's what he's describing. It's a beautiful para. So we'll read that, and also the prose, fantastic prose. Okay, so we'll read that. So it is here at this point in this sadhana that the emergence of the secret psychic being in us as a leader of the sacrifice is of the utmost importance. That's why in Surendra Yoga, it's a three-step formula. The first formula is the psychicization of the nature. The psychic, when it comes forward, you have your complete outlook on things completely changes. And there are three effects. One is you become pure. Your consciousness is pure. It will not tolerate even the slightest vibration of something which is impure. An impure thought, okay, you will have to reject immediately. An impure emotion, okay, all the wrong things in the vital. Vital is full of all sorts of wrong emotions. So it rejects immediately. It does not want. And even the action that you do, sometimes the wrong actions, that also is not permitted by the psychic being. And it's a state where there are three things that happen. First of all, you have a joy, an intense joy. You feel, you may not see the divine presence, but you feel the divine presence everywhere. Okay, in nature, in human beings, and everywhere. You are in a condition of utter happiness, and that utter happiness also creates a sense of beauty in everything. You start seeing the beauty in everything. Flowers, even animals, even human beings. When we see human beings, we normally see their negative side. But when the psychic is forward, you see their positive side only. And it's not that you don't see the negatives, but you ignore them. That's not the essential part. So, beauty, love, and what's the third one? Ananda. Okay, joy. So these three are the characteristics of the psychic being when it comes forward. A deep joy in everything, a sense of beauty in everything, and also the beauty, joy, and ananda. Ananda and joy is the same thing. Devotion,
Love.
yeah. Okay, so these three
Love.
things. Yeah, tell me, Archana.
No, I just mentioned love, beauty, joy, and love.
Yeah, okay. So, utter joy and devotion, love, beauty, and joy. These are the three things. So, and it becomes a leader of the sacrifice. In other words, what is the sacrifice? Everything that you are doing, you remember the divine constantly, 24 hours, you are aware of mother's presence, and whatever you do, you are thinking of her and giving it to her. That's the condition. It's a magnificent condition, but unfortunately, it doesn't stay for too long. After sometimes I have known some people who have had that for just one day, okay, and an unfortunate incident at home, they lost it. And there are some who have it lasted for 6 months, 7 months. But it changes your life entirely when that comes forward. In Sremdo's yoga, psychicization is the safest, and that's why he recommends that as the first stage of sadhana. Because you can go vertically up also into the self. But if you go into the self, it can be dangerous because it's on the first floor, whereas your psychic being is deep on the ground floor, but inside yourself. So if you go into yourself, you are not climbing a height, so it is safe. Okay? It's not easy to get, but you can go into your puja room on the ground floor, and then you are in touch with the divine presence. But if you go up and you have not prepared the stairs properly, okay, and how do you prepare the stairs? By intense concentration and also effort to reject. Sriyamdas yoga is a threefold yoga, which he has said very clearly in the Dhimada. Aspiration above, constant remembrance of the divine. Secondly, this surrender to the divine. Everything that happens to you, you have to accept without rejecting. That surely there is a purpose to that. Even the most unfortunate accident, you will see that it is helping you to cross over to a calmer and a more balanced view of things. Normally we get very highly disturbed, but instead of being disturbed, you must see why it is coming, and then you will benefit from that. Okay, so the difficulties in the world are actually a grace. You can benefit from that. So that is the thing. So and the last one, rejection. So Sriyamdas integral yoga is sum up in 3 words: aspiration above, surrender to the divine, accepting all things that come as though from the divine, and last, the rejection of everything that in you is impure and obviously wrong. Hate, okay, a dislike of people, desire, egoism, all these things have to be rejected. So Sriyamdas yoga, up, horizontal, below. Up is constant aspiration, thinking of the divine and offering. And surrender at the physical level, all the events that happen, everything that comes to you from the physical world, you accept as though it is coming from the divine, and you will see the reason why it is coming. And it can be a help also. Unfortunate incidents can also be of great help. Then finally rejection. So the psychic allows all these things to happen. Okay? And he is using very interesting word, we'll see that. It is here the emergence of the secret psychic being in us as the leader of the sacrifice. Sacrifice as defined in the Gita, yajna. Not sacrifice in the sense of you are parting with something very precious and you feel that, okay, in a fit of generosity you have given away, and after that there is a little regret and you say, oh my God, I have given away such a valuable thing for myself. No, not in that sense, but in the sense of a happy offering of what you have to the divine. That's a sacrifice. Of the utmost importance for this, inmost being alone can bring with it the full power of the spirit in the act. So when you are doing whatever you are doing, the spirit in the act is you are doing it for the divine and not for yourself. And the soul in the symbol. Now that's a very interesting thing. The symbol is the photograph or the statue or whatever you have. Okay. So that's a symbol. So then that symbol is not only a physical thing, but it becomes something living. That's what he means by the soul in the symbol. If you are not in the psychic consciousness, sometimes you may wonder, oh, this is just a photograph and I am I go to the samadhi and I am thinking of other things. It's only a stone structure. That is not the soul in the symbol. But when you are in the psychic consciousness, that symbol, whatever it be, either the samadhi or the photograph or there's a small statue of Sri Aurobindo in the meditation hall. These are all the symbols. They become living to you. If the psyche comes forward, soul in the symbol. In the symbol, the soul may not be there if you are in the normal consciousness. It alone can assure, even while the spiritual consciousness is incomplete, even a touch of the psychic can do miracles to you. The perennial freshness and sincerity and beauty of the symbol and prevent it from becoming a dead form or a corrupted and corrupting magic. Now, look at this. He's saying it becomes a dead form. If you are in a normal consciousness, the form is dead. The photograph is only a piece of paper, or the statue of Sriyamdas in the meditation hall is just a piece of metal or stone. It is a dead form. But when the psyche comes forward, it's not a dead form, it's a living form. Or even if it is not a dead form, it can be even worse, it can be corrupted. or a corrupted. You're thinking of it as something very ordinary. That's what happens to many people who don't understand the devotion to the divine. They say, why worship a stone? Islam also has the same idea. Okay, it is idiotic to worship a stone or a photograph. It's only a piece of material. Why are you doing that? So it is corrupted. But and also it can corrupting. It can also make you think in the wrong way. The whole idea of iconoclasm. Iconoclasm is the refusal to believe in the symbol as one who is an iconoclast is the one who destroys images. We have that famous example recently of the Taliban in Afghanistan completely destroying that huge statue of Buddha on a hill. No? That was an act of total vandalism. You remember that? Huh? About 7-10 years ago, the Taliban, that Buddha statue in Afghanistan, they completely, so that's a corrupting magic. It completely corrupts you. So,
Ranganath,
yeah.
yeah, about this statue or stone or whatever we think, it in our culture we have this prana pratishtha also, no? So the statue becomes symbolic once it is once you put prana in it.
Yes, that's right. That
So,
was, yeah.
So
But
this is for what actually?
yes,
Because,
that's right. But there's another thing, Tarika. Even if there is no prana pratishtha in the image and nobody is going there, but the divine presence is there everywhere. So if you are in a psychic condition, you will see the divine presence even when there is no prana pratishtha. That's what Swami is saying.
No, so then why? Then why this prana pratishtha at all? That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, because when ordinary people are there, they don't have access to the psychic, but they have access to the vital devotion. Devotion can be vital, it can be mental. So those who go to Tirupati or those who go to Sabarimala, you think that all of them are in a spiritual condition? No. They are in a very ordinary condition, but there is devotion. That devotion is the vital devotion. They want things for themselves. Na? They pray to the divine, but oh, please make my business successful. Oh, please give me a good husband for my daughter. So these are all vital.
Yeah.
And yet it is devotion because you are asking the divine for that. So there is a second level. There the prana pratishtha is very important. Because there is a response from the vitality in the image. There is a response. But it is not absolutely the psychic thing. It's not pure. That's why why do you think that so many people go to Tirupati or Sabarimala or so many other temples? It is at the prana pratishtha level. I'm not saying that the divine is not there, but you don't perceive the divine. You are at a slightly shallower level. That's right. And there are so many reactions of a human being. Na? First of all, he may say, stone is nothing. Like what is that famous temple in Gujarat, which was built 7 times, it was destroyed by the Mughals.
Somnath.
Somnath, correct. Somnath was destroyed so many times. So that is the normal reaction of the human being. Hate for the thing. The second level is no hate, but love. But it is a vital love. Then finally, that's a middle term. Then finally, you go to the spiritual level. And even if there is no prana pratishtha, you see the divine presence in everything. So that's the real spiritual devotion. No? So there are grades. Everywhere there are grades. Yeah, you raised that question of prana pratishtha. Is very interesting. Yes. Okay. So let's go to the expand. Yeah. So I go to the next sentence. Okay. So we came to that corrupting. That's why I made that. Just 1 minute. My computer has jumped. Yeah. A dead form or a corrupted and corrupting magic. It can make you think in the wrong way also. It alone can preserve for the act its power with its significance. Okay, the real significance of the symbol comes through when you are in a psychic condition. All the other members of our being, mind, life, force, physical or body consciousness, are too much under the control of the ignorance to be a sure instrumentation, and much less can they be a guide or or the source of an unerring impulse. They are all mind, life, and body are all under the influence of level one, which is ignorance and even impurities. Therefore, they cannot be good instruments for the change, the spiritual change. But the psychic being is the only one that is absolutely pure. Always the greater part of the motive and action of these powers, same they use the word powers for mind, life, and body, because they are powers, no? The body also is a power, it can move. And when you move, it is a power that making you move. Vital also is a power, a great power, greater power than physical. Then the mind is even a greater power than physical. But they are all powers, but impure powers. Clings to the old law, the deceiving tablets, the cherished inferior movements of nature, and they meet with reluctance, alarm, or revolt, or obstructing inertia, the voices and the forces that call and impel us to exceed and transform ourselves into a greater being and a wider nature. So when the psychic being comes forward, as I said, there is a beautiful experience, but there is a resistance from the body, mind, life, body, life, and mind. There is a resistance, and even if there is no resistance, they accept those things, but use it for their own impure reactions. The body wants enjoyment because you are having ananda, but the body's ananda is something very impure. It can go to greed or it can even go to sex. That's what is mentioned later on in the para. Okay, that's what happens. So ananda, the pure ananda psychic being, gets distorted by the body into something pleasure. Okay, so that is something that happens. So when they're using the word deceiving tablets and cherished inferior movements. And what about the vital? Same thing. The vital also starts taking this purity and taking credit for it. Okay, this is, I am special, I have got this. And the mind also, although the mind is affected less than the body and the vital, still that also can go in the wrong way. Egoism can come in. You feel that you are special. That's what happens. So the body, mind, life is always resisting and reluctant to receive these things. And it's an experience that everybody has. When you try to make yourself pure, there is a resistance. It's not very easy to do that. There is an unwillingness to change. That unwillingness to change is very obvious. We try to tell the truth always, but we find ourselves doing the opposite. We try to meditate, but our mind goes on here and there. Impurity is everywhere. That's what it is. And look at the words he is using. They meet with reluctance. They don't want the light. In fact, I think I told you once, Italian lady had come and she used to attend those talks, and she came to me, she took an appointment and came and told me that the golden light was coming into her, but she did not want it. Part of her did not want it. The vital was rejecting it. And she was very conscious of that. So that's what happens. Reluctance. Chandra is very specifically using the word, okay? Reluctance. Alarm. You get surprised. Hey, what's happening to me? Suddenly everything is changed. You get alarm. There's fear. Chandra use the word alarm, but often there is a fear also when it comes in. When something descends into you, it breaks all your finiteness. And the infinity is something that you can't bear very easily. There is fear that comes. And that fear is a sign of the impurity. So that's what. Alarm, you can also use the word fear. Or even revolt. It can go even farther. There are so many cases in the ashram where people started revolting against mother and children. Okay, finding fault with them and criticizing them. Okay, so always, yeah.
Ranganath, that is a line, I don't remember the exact word, but humanity bears ill the eternal's touch. That
That's
there.
That's right. Yeah. It is in love with its own imperfection also. Another line in Savitri, yeah. That's right.
But it's not humanity, no? Is the word? I forget. I'm not sure.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. Mortality is the word used.
Mortality, mortality.
Yes.
Yeah. Because something
Mortality
is wrong.
bears ill. Mortality bears ill the eternal's touch.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the line. Yeah. Okay. So that's right. That's it. What Sindhu is describing. Our obstructing inertia. You don't want reluctance. The voices and forces that call and impel us to exceed and transform ourselves into a greater being and a wider nature. In their major part, the response is either a resistance or a qualified or temporizing acquiescence. Even if we agree, it lasts for a very short time. Temporizing, it is subject to time. It is born, you accept temporarily, and then it disappears. Why? Because the body mind life is saying, no, no entry. I don't want you to come in. For even if they follow the call, they yet tend, when not consciously, then by automatic habit, to bring into the spiritual action their own natural disabilities and errors. They are all limited. So their disability is absence of quality, but even positive errors also are there. At every moment, they are moved to take egoistic advantage of the psychic and spiritual influences and can be detected using the power, joy, or light these bring into us for a lower life motive. You start using the power for influencing others or getting what you want, you use the power is used in the wrong way. 90% of the time, those who have power, they don't use it in the right way in the normal consciousness. Joy or light, these things bring into us for a lower life motive. Lower life motive, wrong action and selfish motives. Afterwards too, even when the seeker has opened to the divine love, transcendental, universal or immanent, their love can be for the divine transcendental, level 3, level 2, universal, level 1, even at the immanent level. The divine is there in you and you feel that. Yet, if he tries to pour it into life, he meets the power of obscuration and perversion of these lower nature forces. They don't allow you to have that pure action. They don't allow you. You see that there is an impure action that takes place. Always they draw away towards pitfalls. Okay, there is always a fall sometimes. For they draw you towards the pitfalls. Not necessarily that you fall into a pit, but they draw you towards it. Pour into that higher intensity, they're diminishing elements. Okay. Even if it is there, love is there, other, but it is diminished condition. Okay, so that's what he's saying. And their interests and degraded into an aggrandized mental, vital, or physical instrumentation. It's very interesting what he's saying. For desire and ego, aggrandized mental, vital, and physical instrumentation for desire and ego. You misuse the psychic influence for desire and ego. Instead of a divine love, creator of a new heaven and a new earth of truth and light, they would hold it here prisoner as a tremendous sanction and glorifying force of sublimation to gild the mud of the old earth. The old earth, your old nature. And that old nature, you're just covering it with a thin strip of gold. You know what is gilding, no? Gilding is you take any metal and just put a covering of gold on it. Just like you do sometimes, the gold leaf is used sometimes and silver leaf also for sweets. It is actually gold, by the way. Pan also they use sometimes. You go on beating, becomes very thin, even thinner than a paper. And that is used. So gilding is exactly that. A metal thing, you cover it with a gold leaf or a silver leaf. Gilding means that. And what are you gilding? The mud of the old earth, your old nature. And color with its rose and sapphire, the old, turbid, unreal skies of sentimentalizing vital imagination and mental idealized chimera. So look at the words and enjoy the even the prose. Glorifying force of sublimation. Okay? The psychic being sublimates, makes subtle all your gross things. It makes it subtle. But that subtle condition is used to cover the old nature only, not change it. But it's only covering it, gilding the mud of the old earth and color it with its rose and sapphire. Now that's beautiful. Rose is the color of the psychic being. We know that. And the sapphire is a blue, no? It's a sort of blue. And we know that Sringo's color was blue. His light was blue. Okay? And mother's light was white. That's why the flags also that we have in the PED, mother's flag is white and Sringo's flag is blue. Those who have experienced the light of mother is white and those who have experienced the light of Sringo is blue, usually. And blue is very interesting because Sri Krishna also, you know, he is the blueness. Yeah. He is also even shown as having a dark skin. And they paint it usually blue in the paintings. So,
Shiva also Neelakantha, no? Shiva also Neelakantha.
Okay. So, and sentimentalizing vital imagination. The sentimental is not true emotion. Sentiment is something much shallower than an emotion. So, it's a shallow imagination. And mentalized vital chimera. Mental idealized chimera. Chimera is a shadow or a something that is a illusion. So it's not absolutely truth. So all these, the mind and the vital and the body, change the spiritual influences into something much, much impure. If that falsification is permitted, the higher light and power and bliss withdraw. And there is a fall back to the lower status. You come back to where you were. That's what happens. It may happen in 1 day, it may happen in 2 days, it may happen in 1 week, it may happen in 6 months, depending on the intensity with which the psychic being comes, or the resistance in the body-mind life is less. Then it lasts a longer time. But in any case, it changes you completely. Okay? Or else the realization remains tied to an insecure halfway or mixture, or is covered and even submerged by an inferior exaltation that is not the true Ananda. So, an inferior exaltation is the distorted form of Ananda, which is pleasure. So, inferior exaltation, there's an exaltation, there's an enjoyment that comes, but it is inferior. It is mere pleasure. So that also can happen. The mind may take pleasure, the vital also turns that ananda into pleasure, and the body also turns that into pleasure. That's what he'll tell you a little later on. We'll see that now. It is for this reason that divine love, which is at the heart of all creation and the most powerful of all redeeming and creative forces, has yet been the least frontally present in earthly life. He repeats this idea also in the Mother, the small book, The Mother, also he says that. Love is the last one to come down. Because it is, the earth does not tolerate that. Exactly what Tarika was saying, mortality bears ill the eternal's touch. So you can't, you reject it. That's why it doesn't come down. It tries to come down, but does not. Ethical sentimentalism, a sensuous or even sensual erotic mysticism, okay, I told you that I will tell you about what happened with this. There was a gentleman who came uh, from America, and he came here, and he was here for about a year, and he went back and he made it's called the Esalan Institute, ESALAN, Esalan Institute. You can check it on the internet. He was here for a short time, and his name was Murphy. But he made the institution something absolutely in the wrong way. They introduced even sex into all these things, and there was a disastrous consequence. Okay, it was on the Californian coast, and the sea came and completely destroyed that place. Number one, and number two, there were also many cases of suicide when you try to mix the lowest sexual tendencies with spiritual tendencies. The disaster is only 100% sure. So that's what happened. There were suicide cases also, because there is such a distortion of the true thing. So this is what he is saying here. He is very clearly mentioning here, even sensual, erotic mysticism of the roseate colored mind or passionately turbid life impulse, and with these simulations compensated its inability to house the mystic flame that could rebuild the world with its tongues of sacrifice. I also had another experience with somebody who came from California. He was a good man, okay, but he also insisted that sex is not incomplete, is not inconsistent with a spiritual life. Okay, they get completely distorted by the tantric understanding of things. The tantric formula is valid if you are already pure. If you are not pure, it will completely destroy your life. And that's why Tantra is so dangerous, because it is valid, provided you already have a divine nature, where you are not going to be affected by anything in the physical world. The Tantra is meant for those who are of a divine nature. Daivi Prakriti is the word used in the Tantric literature. If you have a Daivik Prakriti, then you are fit for the Tantra. But otherwise, no, definitely not. And that's why it is so difficult. And that's why it got into a bad name also. The Tantrics are supposed to be very impure and full of mischief. That's a usual impression of the in India. And that is the truth in it also. But the real Tantra is absolutely wonderful. Swami has given it high praise in the century, if you remember. Remarkable system, he calls it. Okay, so we have got 5 minutes. I'll finish the para. Okay, so, yeah.
No, the secret society and all these people in the West also, there is the secret society and all that, no? Which
yes, they
believes
keep,
in, which believes in these rituals, and they accept this as the...
this idea has been there everywhere in the Vedic period also. This spiritual development was kept secret, because those who are impure, if they come into it, it's a disaster. You can end up with great difficulties. It's happened in the ashram also, several cases. I know of at least 2 or 3 cases where it happened and they had to be sent away. Okay, so you have to listen very carefully to the Guru. You have to be very, very objective about your own nature. You have to see what is right and what is wrong and reject the wrong. Very few people can do that. They justify their own impurities, usually. Human nature has been unable to bear it in its purity for the very reason that it is the most powerful, pure, rare, and intense of all the divine energies. What little could be seized has been corrupted at once into a vital, pietistic ardor. The word piety is a devotion to parents and God. Okay, it's respect and devotion to parents and God. It's not a very deep thing. Piety. Pietistic is the adjective. Vital, pietistic. He is using the word vital, so very clear you can understand that it's not the pure thing, but it is a middle term. It's not bad, but it's not the perfect thing at all. Vital, pietistic ardor, a defenseless religious or ethical sentimentalism. Ethical is moral, and morality is only not indulging in the act, but the desire may be there in your mind. Usually that's it. So ethical is don't drink, don't smoke. Okay, this is fine. I am not using other terms, but only drinking and smoking don't do. If you stop, then you are moral. Okay, you don't tell a lie. You are moral, but the desire is there in the mind. So that is what the Gita says. Now you have to remove the desire in the mind, and when you remove the desire in the mind, there is no difference whether you are indulging or not. That's the whole thing. Let's see. Sannyasa and Tyaga. These are the two words used in the Gita. It has to be, sannyasa is the giving up of the physical. That's okay. It's not that it's bad, but it is of no use at all if you have not cut the link in the mind. That has to go away. Okay. So, where are we? One second. My computer has jumped. Yeah, I've got it. It is only the inmost psychic being, unveiled and emerging in its full power, that can lead the pilgrim sacrifice. He is using an image, pilgrim sacrifice, unscathed through these ambushes and pitfalls. The word ambush is very interesting because if any of you have had the experience, you will know how accurate that word is. Ambush. An ambush is a sudden attack, unexpected sudden attack. Huh? And that's exactly what happens. Sometimes when you are going, suddenly you see something beautiful or whatever it is, and your old nature, okay, jumps up at you. Unexpectedly, it can come. Okay, so that is what is meant by ambush. It can ambush you. And pitfall. Then you can also fall with the ambush, the mosquitoes. Okay, so ambush, where is it gone? Yeah. Ambush and pitfall. At each moment, it catches, each is a psychic being, it catches, exposes, repels the minds and the life's falsehoods, seizes hold on the truth of the divine love and ananda, and separates it from the excitement of the mind's ardors and the blind enthusiasms of the misleading life force, the vital. But all things that are true at their core in mind and life and the physical being, it extricates, it extricates, and takes with it in the journey till they stand on the heights, new in spirit and sublime in figure. So that's why he recommends the psychicization first, then the rising into the spiritual plane, which is the spiritualization, and then finally the supramentalization. This is the threefold mode of the integral yoga. Normally you stop at the spiritualization. Most people are very, very happy with that and they stop there. And the body, mind, life doesn't get transformed, but they don't care. Let it go. After death, in any case, my body, mind, life will die. My soul is, the consciousness is now pure and it can live forever with the divine. So that's what he is saying. So we'll stop here today. It's a beautiful and very detailed description of the psychic emergence and the problems that it faces in the physical world. So next we go to and yet even the leading of the inverse. Okay?
Okay.
Au revoir, everybody. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Ranganath.
Thank you, Ranganath.